Recently, Kaido made a huge declaration in front of his crew while allying with Big Mom. The Marines have abolished the shichibukai, which means they have confidence in the new force that is to replace them, the SSG. This post will explore what I believe that force to be, and why it will make its introduction near the conclusion of Wano. Also, I always include a bit of a bonus theory at the end of my posts. There's one here as well. This panel of law in Punk Hazard succinctly summarizes my theory. The government has centuries-long research into making an army of giants. Not just giants, but make note of the image law is describing, ancient giants the likes of Ors. In fact, the image in Law's explanation is the exact same pose that we see in Or's very first appearance. I believe that since Punk Hazard, and even Thriller Bark TBH, the story has been slowly building up to the force that the SSG is about to unveil. At the beginning of the series, the government's solution to maintain balance in the world was the shichibukai system. Powerful pirates who ally with the government for immunity but have to assist when called upon. While extremely powerful, they have shown time and time again that they cannot be controlled. Our first introduction to a force the government can control came in the form of the pacifistas. Cyborgs modeled after the shichibukai Kuma by Dr. Vegapunk. They are durable and can even be fitted with DF powers thanks to Vegapunk's genius. However, after the time skip we see that they ultimately pose no threat to stronger pirates, as the SH crew handles them relatively easily in their return to Sabayati. Those with haki can easily make work of them. They are both manufacturable and controllable but not powerful enough. So that leaves the government with a problem. The shichibukai are powerful but cannot be controlled as they often take advantage of their position. Crocodile, Blackbeard, Doflamingo, Law. However, their controllable army, the pacifistas, prove no threat to the stronger pirates of the New World. I think we find our answer to this problem in Punk Hazard. I return to the panel that was at the top of this post. Law describes Punk Hazard as a place that has traces of centuries-old research by the government. Ultimately, their goal was to create a powerful controllable army of giants. The giants pictured resemble ancient giants as well. Very recently, we got confirmation of these experiments by Big Mom. When she saw the numbers on a Nagashima, she noted that they are failed ancient giant experiments that Kaido bought from Punk Hazard. This shows an example of the government being able to reproduce a powerful force, but not one they can control, as we see the numbers are absolutely wild. Fitting for the likes of a pirate crew but not the government. I also believe that these are among Vegapunk's first experiments after joining the government. We can also piece together a rough timeline with this information. 33 years ago the remnants of Rocks began building their own crews. We see the numbers present in the flashback 20 years ago, as they attack the scabbards after they escape execution. This means Kaido purchased them from Punk Hazard between 20 to 33 years ago. We also know that Judge and Vegapunk previously worked on an illegal science team where they discovered lineage factors. The government arrested and absorbed Vegapunk's team while Judge continued research in Germa. This was stated to be before the Vinsmoke children were born, the oldest being Reiju, so at least 24 years ago. Judge is also revealed to be 56 years old. If we assume he partnered with Vegapunk at 17 years old at the earliest, same age Luffy began his adventure, that would be 39 years ago. That would give us a rough estimate of 24 to 40 years ago Vegapunk joined the world government. Again, just a rough timeline that may help support the numbers being some of the earliest attempts by Vegapunk for the WG. So how does the government achieve their goal of a reproducible army that is not only powerful to stand against the world's strongest pirates but is also controllable? The answer lies in the aforementioned lineage factors. Our first introduction of lineage factor application comes from Caesar Clown. He is able to create artificial DF called smiles using an application of lineage factor, which was discovered by Vegapunk and Judge. We can clearly see he is only going off someone else's work because his creation comes with many risks. Only 1 in 10 of his fruit are successful. Even when successful, the transformations they allow are partial and sometimes debilitating. The failures are even more worrisome, as they leave you without the ability to express many emotions, only smiles and laughter. Our second example of the same application, devil fruit creation, comes from Vegapunk's failed fruit that Momonosuke. Unlike Caesar's fruit, this transformed Momo into a full dragon, not a partial animal. However, there seems to be a drawback where Momo unwillingly transforms when in states of sudden fear, shock, agitation, etc. Given that we only have one example of Vegapunk's fruit, we cannot draw any conclusions about its success rate. But at the very least, the transformation seems leagues ahead of what the smiles produce. Whole Cake Island introduced us to the science nation of Germa, led by Judge, former colleague of the world's most esteemed scientist Dr. Vegapunk. Through this relationship, we learn that Judge has found a way to produce an army of humans that are fiercely loyal by applying a second application of their discovery, lineage factors. By cloning a few superior soldiers, he can create an army of strong loyal fighters. So I ask you this. What if the leading scientist in the world and the one to co-discover lineage factors was able to get his hands on ancient giants? Would he then finally be able to successfully reproduce ancient giants by applying lineage factors, just as his ex-partner Judge has done with the Germa army? We've already seen that his created devil fruit was better than Caesar's even though it was deemed a failure. Would his cloning science also be superior to Germa's? I believe there currently exists 2 scenarios of this being possible, and they are Ors and Ors Jr. When Vegapunk was doing his research on Punk Hazard, he did not have an ancient giant specimen to clone. Ors was either frozen in a block of ice or already in Moria's freezer, and Ors Jr. was under the flag of Whitebeard. I will begin with Ors Jr. as that seems most likely Imo. This is the last known status of Ors Jr. as he has not been mentioned or seen since. On the ground, bloodied and unconscious, maybe dead, behind a line of Marines, an ecstatic Moria nearby and the government's pacifistas on standby. Literally on the doorstep to the Marines surrounded by Vegapunk's pacifistas, the man that is now confirmed to have tried to make ancient giants on Punk Hazard, the numbers, but previously failed. While Shanks mentioned he would take care of the burials of Whitebeard and Ace, there is no mention of Ors Jr. His body is also massive and not easily moved. I believe he could now be in the hands of the government. Another possibility is Ors Jr.'s direct ancestor Ors, whose preserved body was held on Thriller bark by Moria for decades. I mention this as a possibility because the WG attempted to kill Moria after the war by using Doflamingo and pacifistas. Doflamingo simply tells him it's because he is weak, but I believe there to be another reason. The order from the WG to kill Moria is in stark contrast to what they told Kuma after Moria was defeated by the Straw Hats. They told him to keep him alive as to keep the Shichibukai title revered. So what was the difference? I bring you back to one of the first panels of this post. I think they wanted to kill him because he had Or's body hidden for decades while the government has been trying to reproduce them for centuries. Since Kuma answers directly to Vegapunk, I believe he would have passed on knowledge of Moria having Ors, Moria also declared his intent to take Or's junior body during the war. I would not be surprised if he was eliminated, as he was in the way of their larger goals. So while they really could have attempted to eliminate him because he was too weak, it doesn't seem like a solid reason to me. Wouldn't it be more beneficial for the government to say that they suffered no casualties among their revered warlords, even in a war with a Yonko? I think they eliminated him because he got in the way of their bigger plans. However, Moria was able to escape, and he still has his ship as seen when he visits Blackbeard. So I think this is a lot less likely. Combining all of that, I think the government now has the means to achieve their long-standing goal of producing a loyal force that can stand against the strongest of the pirate world. It was stated by the Vinsmoke children that a 20-year-old human soldier takes 5 years to produce. It has now been over 2 years since either Ors and Ors Jr. would have been in Vegapunk's hands. If we are to believe that he is even more intelligent than Judge, could he develop a giant in less time? We already saw that his attempt at a devil fruit was much better than Caesar's. Is it reasonable to believe he could clone at a rate that surpasses Germa's? I think it's likely. I believe that the force that the SSG has made to rival the Yonko are cloned ancient giants via lineage factor, who are also equipped with whatever augments Vegapunk desires, much like the Pacifista or the Vinsmoke children. It is my belief that whatever the SSG has in store will make its debut in Wano towards the end of the arc. The land of Wano has quite a bit of interesting connections to the ancient giants that I want to highlight. In Or's introduction, Moria makes note that he is known as the continent puller and once ruled over a lawless land of his creation. Wano is a land of extreme varying climates that almost look pulled together on a map. Kaido, current occupier of a Nagashima, has horns that are in the same shape of Ors and Ors Jr. The giant skull he lives in is also the same shape, but even bigger than Ors and Ors Jr. Moria mentioned that Ors ruled over a lawless land he pulled together. Kaido is currently attempting to move his fortress onto Wano in order to also create a lawless land. Kaido also has the numbers in his crew, which are failed attempts at replicating the ancient giants. Ors Jr. wore an Amigaza hat made by Ace, where he learned to make it in the village of the same name, Amigaza Village, in the land of Wano. As Kaido announced at the festival, the government has a new weapon they're confident in. The SSG led by Vegapunk will make their appearance in Wano. CP0 already has a presence in Wano, much to the shock of X-Drake and Kobe. While in negotiations with CP0, Orokai demands Vegapunk from them, using the backing of Kaido as his leverage over them. As we know, that relationship has recently soured, with Kaido beheading Orokai out of nowhere. I do not think this is the actual death of Orokai. He is one of the few with a mythical Zoan, which are incredibly rare. Furthermore, Fukurojoku seemed calm as he went somewhere else amid the chaos in a Nagashima. Orokai has stated that his goal is to make the people of Wano suffer. If he is left in a position where he cannot maintain power, he will go scorched earth and give CP0 the access they desire and turn Wano over to the government. I believe that the borders of Wano will open, but not in the manner our heroes intend. After the battle between the Straw Hate Alliance and the two emperors, the government will take advantage of this opening to make their move on Wano, led by their new force. It's no secret that Wano is inspired by Japan, and Wano's closed borders are a parallel to Japan's once isolationist policy. While Japan was once isolationist, they did not open their borders voluntarily. It was the intervention of Western military that eventually forced the borders open. I believe this will be true of Wano as well. I think Whitebeard said it best during Odin's flashback the first time he ever saw the Marines. Your country is still free for now. Even though Wano is a country closed off to the world, they are free of the world government's influence. I think this is a premonition of sorts. The borders of Wano will open, but it'll be through the intervention of the world government, mirroring Japan's own history. With both X-Drake on the inside able to report the current events, and CP0 who is also there separately, the government will have the opportunity to swoop in and take advantage of the absence of power. The war between the Straw Hate/Pirate/Mink Alliance and the Beast/Big Mom Alliance will leave each side weakened. Urukai's frayed relationship with Kaido and his slipping power means he has nothing to lose. He will watch them suffer. But next time it'll cost you Dr. Vegapunk. I think that's exactly what you'll get, Urukai. Vegapunk and the SSG force will show their might and take advantage of the weakened state in Wano to open the borders themselves, mirroring history where isolationist Japan had to open its borders due to Western military intervention. I always like to add on a little bonus theory to the end of my long-form posts. I mentioned that Vegapunk will come to Wano with his new force in tow, but I don't think the WG will raise hell. Instead, they look to absorb Wano and make it part of the WG, so leaving as much of the country intact will be of importance to them, especially as it pertains to their resources. Much like how Vegapunk may be able to cure the kids who suffered at the hands of Caesar's gigantism experiments, he will clean up Caesar's other mess, the smiles. And the key to reversing the effects may lie in the blood of a certain cook. Even though much of Vegapunk is shrouded in mystery, we do have an idea of the type of person he is. He has a moral compass, as he was furious with Caesar's lack of morals in his experimentations, eventually dismissing him. When Kuma was set to become a full cyborg, he granted his last wish and programmed him to protect the Sunny for years until the crew returned. So what does all this have to do with Sanji? I believe that Vegapunk is the one who provided Sanji's mother Sara the drug to counteract the effects of Judge's lineage factor experiments on their children. After Vegapunk was absorbed by the WG, he published the comic strip Sara, Warrior of the Sea, as an homage to her fight. Here is what we know about Sara, Warrior of the Sea. It's a comic strip published in the WEJ, where the title character Sara, who shares the name of Sanji's mother, fights against the evil nation of Germa, alongside a transforming robot and a pet seagull. The comic strip is at least a few details about Vegapunk that I think allow for this scenario. Vegapunk worked with Judge decades ago before being acquired by the WG. If you recall my rough timeline earlier, Vegapunk was acquired 36 years ago, which falls in line with Vito. Sara fights alongside a transforming robot. Our other transforming robot, General Frankie, made its debut in Fishman Island, after Frankie spent 2 years in Vegapunk's labs developing weapons based on his schematics. When he debuted, my theory is that Judge's plans for his kids were in the works for a long time, even when he and Vegapunk were still partners, which is why the stealth black power is in the comic. Vegapunk, who has demonstrated to be a kind soul, after being absorbed by the world government, Vegapunk published that comic strip as an homage to Sara's fight. He named the title character after her, gave her a kick-ass transforming robot sidekick that he always. Here is where Sanji comes back in. As we're aware, the drug's effects were only successful for him and Sara passed away soon after. Since the smiles are another application of. Thank you for watching this. I look forward to your thoughts and discussion.